Hey guys, today I'll show you how to build your Barbarian tank so you can face tank death and his army who seek to penetrate. This build aims to do decent DPS while maintaining maximum toughness. No unnecessary toughness will be looked at. This build also works well with group play, and we run a wizard and barbarian combo. It is best suited with a DPS as they can then focus more on their damage in order to gain optimum DPS. I do not have the best gear, but I can sustain Torment 1 to 4 without taking any damage, and can also face tank many bosses without taking any damage as well. Skills. Our main skill for this build is Whirlwind, with the Wind Shear rune. This helps us generate a lot of fury, and in a big group of mobs, it basically allows us to stay at 100% fury all the time. This paired with Avalanche and Ground Stomp also work very well, as it pulls the mobs in towards you so you can just spin to one. The second skill we'll look at is Avalanche. Now Avalanche is a new level 70 skill. It does a lot of weapon damage, as you can see, 1600% to be exact, and I use the Glacier rune. Now the Glacier rune helps freeze the enemies, so this gives me another CC to help keep the mobs off my partner. And it also works well when paired with Ground Stomp, so you can have a chain CC. Now we can take a look at Ground Stomp. Now Ground Stomp, I use Wrenching Smash. This allows me to pull in all the enemies within a 24-yard radius and then stun them for 4 seconds. Now, when there are a lot of mobs chasing my wizard or partner, I can just use Ground Stomp to pull them all in, and then use Threatening Shout to just taunt them to attack me. The next skill we'll look at is Rend. Now, life on hit in the Reaper of Souls expansion is absolutely useless in my opinion. I'd rather use a skill that gives me 0.5% of my maximum life per second for each affected enemy. Now Rend also does decent AoE damage and heals you up for quite a lot of health if you have over 1 million health like I do. Threatening Shout is another good skill to use. It is your bread and butter tanking skill, as it is a taunt with a Demoralize rune. It also reduces the damage the enemies deal by 20% for 15 seconds. This paired with Ground Stomp and Avalanche, as I've said before, is also a very good combo to use. Then Warcry. Warcry I do not use, as most people use, is the All Resistance rune. I do not use it. I think it's quite useless, as life regen is more important, and so it also gives you 10% extra life. Now the 10% extra life boosts my health up by quite a bit, and the extra life regen also helps my partner keep his life up so he does not die. Now if we look at the passives. Superstition reduces all non-physical damage by 20%. Now this is also a necessary skill, as it helps with all resistance. You do not have to stack as much all resistance if you use this passive. It also helps generate fury, as you are always being attacked. The next skill we shall look at is Nerves of Steel. Now, Nerves of Steel increases your armor by 50% of your vitality, and since you are a tank and are stacking quite a lot of vitality, you'll really need this skill, as it will give you 50% of your vitality as armor. Tough as Nails is a skill we shall be looking at. It increases your armor by 25% and also increases thorn damage dealt by 50%. Now, people will ask, well, why is the thorn damage useful? Well, you're always being attacked, and reflecting that some little bit of damage can make quite a difference, to be honest, especially when you're trying to number crunch your DPS. And 25% armor increase, as usual, is always good. The last passive we shall look at is Inspiring Presence. Now, it doubles the duration of your shouts and also regenerates 1% of your maximum life per second for 60 seconds. Now this, with a life regen, helps a lot, more than you would even think. Okay, now let's take a look at my gear. As you can see, I managed to maintain 40 million toughness with 250k DPS, which is not too bad for a tank. If you look at my helmet, I use the Skull of Resonance. This is a good tanking helmet, as it can charm enemies to attack each other. This means that they are not attacking you and they are not attacking your partner, which is good. I also use a cooldown reduction gem in my helmet, as I use a lot of cooldown based skills. So cooldown reduction is a must-have for this build. If you look at my chest, I use Blackthorn's Surcoat. Now, what you want to look for on your chest is strength, vitality, or resistance, and 3 sockets. Now, I use 2 vitality gems and 1 strength gem in here, as you do not really want to go over 1.1 million health. You want to try number crunch at DPS, and strength also gives you quite a bit of armor. My belt. The stats you want to look for in your belt are strength, vitality, or resistance, and percent life. All these are core tanking stats, and you can get quite a good roll on the belt to help you boost up all your defense and quite a bit of DPS with strength. The legs. I use Blackthorn's Jousting Mail. This gives me a 2 set of 250 vitality and also increases my damage against elites by 10%. Now, that's not that useful, but the vitality is, as also gives you armor. The stats you want to look for on legs is strength, vitality, and life, and again, 2 sockets, which I've used 2 vitality gems in there to boost up my health. And then Firewalkers. These are must-have boots in my opinion, as when paired with your weapon, which I'll explain later, you can do quite a bit of weapon damage just by running around. The stats you want to look for on your boots are strength, vitality, or resistance, and movement speed. Movement speed is a luxury, you don't need it, but it's very nice to have when trying to follow a fast wizard or monk around. Now we look at shoulders. The stats you want on your shoulders are strength, vitality, resistance, and percent life. Like I'm repeating myself here, but guys, these are the stats you want. Now, braces. Braces, or, well, rest. You want, again, strength, vitality, or resistance, and percent life. These are also quite nice braces, as it reduces the duration of control, impairing effects by 40%. Now, you want at least 60%, CC reduction, let's call it that. Because when they freeze you, it'll give you a 1 to 2 second frame in which you'll break free and you're able to tank again. Neck. My neck, as you can see, is quite a good roll. Again, you want strength, vitality, or resistance, and either weapon damage, or just damage in general, attack speed, crit, or any DPS stat that will boost up your DPS by a minor amount. Gloves. These are very, very good tanking gloves. I picked them up last week, or the week before. Anyway, you want strength, vitality, or resistance, and crit hit chance. Now, as you can see, I got a good roll of crit hit chance there, and this build does not have a lot of crit hit chance. But if you get enough crit hit chance, you can then replace the gem I use on my weapon with a crit damage gem to boost up your DPS even more. But for now, we shall stay to that gem, and I'll explain that later. If you look at the passive of these gloves, when 5 or more enemies within 12 yards, you gain an absorb shield to 23% of your maximum life. Now, I have 1.1 million life, so you can do the math. That shield can absorb quite a bit of damage, and it procs every 30 seconds. Now, rings. If you look at my Creed's Flame ring, I again have attack speed, percent life, strength, and crit hit damage. Now, this ring gives me more DPS than any kind of defense. That is not a problem, as my defenses are already so high that I'm trying to number crunch DPS, and this ring is a nice ring to do it. Because also, if you look at the passive, if you take any kind of fire damage, it restores your primary resource. The Skull Grasp. This is a pure defense ring with 1 DPS stat. You want to look for strength, vitality, and all resistance on a ring, if you can. If you're already capped, or I shall explain the caps in a second, then you would want more DPS stats. But for now, this ring's very good. It also gives me CC reduction by 26%, which is quite decent. Now, if you look at my shield. A shield, they were bugged in the beginning, but they have now fixed the block amount to have a level 70 roll. On your shield, you want vitality, or resistance, percent life, and strength. As you can see, I do not have strength, but I'm trying to reroll the socket for strength. basically the block chance does not really matter. However, a very high block chance will be very, very helpful. So try get as much block chance on your shield as you can, but again, it is not as important as the other stats. And finally, my weapon. This weapon is very good for tanking. It may look like a DPS weapon, but that is exactly what we need. On your weapon you want strength and vitality and a socket. You also want more than 2k damage. Now, the passive on this basically blasts enemies with 358% weapon damage, and it arcs to additional if you look at the socket gives me plus 250 extra damage. Now, that increases my weapon damage, which also in turn increases the passive's damage. Also, my firewalker's damage. So, in the end, I end up doing more damage with a 250 damage socket in my, socket. It also helps my skills do more damage, as I do not have a lot of crit chance, so it'd be pointless putting crit hit damage in there where I'm not critting as much. And last but not least, we shall look at my Paragon points. As you can see in the core Paragon, I have spec'd into Vitality. Now, Vitality gives you more health, and also because of your passive, it gives you 50% of that Vitality as armor. Now, as you can see, that is quite good, as it is giving you 2 stats instead of 1. After Vitality, I would probably spec into Strength, as it will give me more damage and more armor. Let's look at Offense. Now, if you look at Offense, I've spec'd into Cooldown Reduction. I'll say again, I use a lot of cooldown based skills, so cooldown reduction is a must have. Defense. I've spec'd into All Resist and Life Regen. Now, All Resist I have capped at 75%. I do not feel a need to go over 75%, so I've only spec'd a certain number of points into All Resist, and the rest have gone into Life Regeneration, which is a core heal in my build, as I regen more life than I lose. Utility. Life on hit is useless, I'll say again. So I'd rather use area damage to increase my DPS in general, and you do not want to use resource cost reduction, because if you look at Avalanche, it reduces the cooldown by 1 second for every 25 Fury you spend. So if you spec into resource cost reduction, this will mean more downtime on Avalanche, which is bad, as it is one of your main damaging skills, and also it freezes or CCs your enemies. Gold Find is useless unless you want to farm, so I guess you could spec into that. And yes, so I will either spec into area damage or Gold Find. That is completely up to you. I hope you enjoyed this guide, guys. We'll be updating more and doing more videos as we go along. Please remember to comment, rate, like, and subscribe. If you hate us, don't like our videos, thumbs down. If you love us, thumbs up. We love you too. Check out our other videos, and thanks for watching.